Hey there, beautiful people. This is Gina Robinson, and you are listening to the Renew Podcast. You are in the right place and always welcome here. All right, ladies, welcome back to the Renew Podcast. I am Gina Robinson, and I have Lauren Kennedy with me, as always.
Sidekick.
I know. I think she's only been with me like once because you were on, I think you guys were on your sabbatical when you weren't able to do it. But I always love having her. And we have a friend with us today. Paige House is in the house. How's that? I met Paige. Can I tell how we met first? And that way, because I always think it's fun. First of all, we do these podcasts really as a resource, but also to share other stories and encourage the body of Christ. And I've gotten so much feedback, and your story is just sweet, special, and God has been doing a lot in your life. And as I have seen you, both of us have grown so much since we first met. So we met in the early 2000s. Our kids were on the soccer field, and they played against each other. But I remember seeing you and also talking to you, and you've just always had a gentle, kind spirit about you. A caring person, which fits perfectly since you're a nurse, and that's your vocation. I believe you have the gift of helps. And so today we're going to talk a lot about your journey. But before we do that, she is an entrepreneur and business owner. Close, did I say that correct?
You did.
Close Aesthetic Boutique. Many of you may know her. Her being the gift of helps, she's helped a lot of people in the community. Also, you are a mother of 2 adult children.
Yes.
And that has been very special for you. And so I feel like we've connected a lot because both of our families are in that season of parenting adult children, which is a whole nother podcast. But in that, she has been in the business that she's doing now, guys, since the early 90s, since you graduated from Pitt Community College.
That's
grew
correct.
up here in Greenville, had a wonderful family you grew up in. But there's some things about your story that I think that God has done amazing things and how he fulfills the longings of our heart. And Lauren's got questions for you today, too.
I do know Paige a little bit.
Yes. She knows Paige. But there's a lot of things that today that I believe the Holy Spirit's been doing over the past couple of years, and it's gotten you to the point you are now. So will you just begin and kind of share your story of how you grew up, your faith, which you had a great foundation of faith that you grew up in your home, and your longing to find out who Paige was actually in Christ.
Yes. So thank you for having me. It is a story, and I don't think I really realized the story that it was as a teenager or a child, or how that would progress. But I would just say over these last few years and just really searching and seeking the Lord more and just sharing, what he's done in my life. Certainly it is a story, and we all have stories.
Yes.
And just learning that our stories do connect and they all point back to him, and how important it is to share those stories and not keep them inside. So yes, at 3 days old, I had a wonderful family here in Greenville that felt they needed a 3rd child, even though they had a son and a daughter. So I cannot relate to that because I did not want a 3rd child. Wow. But they did for whatever reason. And so they adopted me at 3 days old. And I recall at age probably 3 or 4, my mom telling me that I was their adopted angel, and I don't think I really understood what that meant. I just knew I was different, certainly special, as she relayed to me about how much I was loved. Nothing was ever shared, about my birth mom or anything like that, and I just never felt different. in that regards. But yes, I was very blessed to have not only my immediate family who was very firm in the faith, but extended family that has such a legacy. I remember my grandmother sitting with her Bible on her lap. Like, she would not watch TV, but that Bible would be there. We have several pastors in our family, and, it was just, that was life. And I'm so grateful for that. But, so yeah, the journey, I think as you get a little bit older, and all teenagers do, we have that quest for identity and who we are and where do we fit in. And I do believe that the enemy, even at that age, can start feeding lies.
Yeah.
And for me, it was starting to question, I don't fit in. I don't look like them. I'm different than them. Or if my own mother couldn't keep me, really, was I loved? Who could really love me? Which was a lie.
Yeah.
I don't even recall as a teenager, I think it was when I was older, the scriptures about, in Psalms where he says, I formed you, I created you in the womb. Like, I don't recall those scriptures, like hearing those now. But I was told I was loved. I knew I was loved. I went to church. But still, sometimes the lies really speak louder than truth. And I think at that age, it's really hard to discern that. So I did go down that rabbit hole of really just questioning, was I really loved? Was I lovable? And I do remember as a child always being the pleaser because, I didn't want them to give me back or rehome me.
Yeah.
Not that that was ever an option that they relayed to me.
But as a child, I could see you really like...
So the performance side of, I need to make them happy. I need to be good. Like, I didn't understand that's what it was until I was much older. But I think that's where all that stemmed from. But so fast forward, I would say, in those teen years, really just saying, oh, Lord, I'd love to know more. Who do I look like? Are my eyes like her? Or my hair like her? Just the normal wanting to know. I think that's all normal. But I never really discussed that with family because I really did not want to hurt my parents. And I felt like, that wasn't something I should do. But I remember crying myself to sleep some nights. Sorry. And just questioning. But I look back and I thank the Lord for all those lies. I wasn't in an abusive home where that lie could have been, I could have given a real reason why that was truth. There was no truth to how I felt.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that. I think that did help shape me. But so fast forward, and I always wanted to know. It wasn't until I had my daughter. And I remember having her that night to where I sobbed. I was like, all these years thinking, why couldn't she keep me? She was old enough to keep me. Those questions that I realized what she did for me and what she gave me was life to a family that loved me. And that's huge. And when we're all mothers, I mean, I can't imagine having a child and giving that child and never learning or knowing anything about that child.
Right.
And were they taken care of? So I did. I sobbed. But also that night was probably the beginning of the Lord really just showing me his love and what he's done for us. That he didn't give his son to be loved. He gave his son because he loved, but to a cruel world, and it was so much different. But I think that's the first time in my life I really grasped what love was. So anyway, that's the beginning of the search. And, I was saved as a child, again, growing up in a Christian home. But that relationship, really, the quest to really love like he loved, started then. And really learning to walk in love and be in love. I would say that was the true revelation.
So you and I remember you saying when we were talking prior to recording, you had said that you and your friend, which I thought was so cute, wrote to Dear Abby.
Yes.
And, guys and ladies, if you grew up, I mean, I remember my mom reading Dear Abby and my grandmother in the like printed newspaper,
Yes.
But there was, y'all wrote to find, to see if you could get help finding who your birth mother really was. So there was like continually searching. So tell us a little bit, like you were on the search of like finding out who Paige is, but also absorbing the love of Christ in your life. And really like that was revelation to you. Then becoming a mother, that's still that longing. So how did you actually find your birth mother and discover, and some of those questions were answered for you, obviously.
Yes. So, I mean, Dear Abby was the first reach out as a teenager. So she didn't respond, but I think just that desire to know more. I petitioned the state. I did have some medical concerns at one point that really propelled it a little bit more, like, hey, what are the health things that I could be looking at? Not just appearance or personality or that type thing, but still dead ends. It just, and I can remember praying, Lord, if this is your will, I know you will answer this prayer in your time. But if it's not, give me the peace to know that it's just not. Maybe there's not good news on the other end. And, but I would say for anybody who is adopted, I would just say, just know that all those thoughts are normal. I think I had guilt for thinking that or wanting that when I had a good family. I struggled with that. So I had a client, 10 years, 15 years ago that we had shared some stories, and she was like, you need to reach out on Search Squad on Facebook, and, they can help you. And so here we go again. So we joined the Search Squad. We put out the identifying information and nothing. So, I just let that go. So fast forward, I did go through a season where I knew my marriage was not going to probably make it. And at the same time, my mother had developed Alzheimer's. And so we were going through the throes of losing her. And she was my best friend. And we worked together, since I graduated nursing school. She was my boss. And my sister worked with me. And, awesome. We did that for 20-some years. And then we noticed she was young. She was 63 when things started changing.
Wow.
And so I started experiencing a lot of loss.
Yeah.
And the questions again started coming, why, Lord? When you've had such a great childhood and not a lot of death in the family, I look back and I used to think when people talked about their testimony, and I was like, I don't have one. Like, nothing bad's ever happened to me. Like, I've had a great life. I've had a good family. Like, I remember sitting in Bible studies earlier on and people sharing their stories, and I'm like, I don't have anything to share. But I did. I just didn't know I did, or what was coming. So after the separation, that was in April. In October of that year, I got an inbox message on Facebook from somebody random that I don't know.
You know how people hate Facebook, but but in this story, I love it. I love it.
So this sweet soul reached out to me and said, hey, I saw your information on the Search Squad and wanted to know, had you ever, had enclosure in your search? And I was like, that was 10 years ago. And I was just like, why now? Like, I am recently separated. My mom is in the last stages. Like, this is clearly not the time for this. And I said, thank you, but I did not. But now it's just not the right time. And my supportive friends were like, what are you doing? And I said, I don't think I can handle this right now. And I don't know what's on the other side to even throw in the mix. So she was persistent and she kept reaching out. She said, have you ever done a DNA test? And I was like, no. She said, you need to do one. And I was like, I don't. 3 months went by. I got off the treadmill with my girlfriend who, she said, we're ordering one today and you're going to do it. So I did it. And
isn't that just like a friend?
Yeah.
You're doing it today.
Yes. So I did it. And this was probably in January. My mom passed in February, and by October of that following year, the same year my mom passed, I met my birth mom.
Wow.
And if there was ever a time in my life I needed a miracle, that was a miracle. And I know God's timing is perfect because he knew my whole life that was going to take place.
Yes.
And he saved it for that time. And I hate to think of the scripture of the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, but he does. And I had not even shared with my siblings that I had found her because I felt so guilty for losing mom and then that. So only my children knew. And I met her in October. And she's a beautiful soul. I love her. And we've stayed connected. She's a short distance away. I'm gonna give you that because I thought I was gonna need that. I'm sorry.
Oh my God!
It's just so sweet.
It is. It really is.
I mean, when people, even we hear people say God's timing is perfect. We were hearing this before we even knew what that even meant. I remember being little when people would say that to me. But just hearing your story, I mean, really, like God, a miracle manifested that you have been praying for so long. It's kind of like no and not yet, because it's like you felt like you were being told no so many times. And really, it's like, yes, I will. And I'm going to, but not yet.
Right.
And he just knew the
He knew the right timing.
Yeah. And for her I just love the fact that she doesn't live across the country.
Right.
And that you can actually have connection that is affordable.
Right.
You can actually get in your car and drive and connect and stuff. And you found out you had half siblings, didn't you?
I have a half brother.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he's not close by. He's currently in London and has been in Argentina.
Oh,
wow. But he comes back generally at Christmas, and so we'll get together. But shortly after that, I don't even know how much of the story or time we have to get into it. But so she didn't share with him because he didn't know about me. And, I had told her, I said, if you never tell him, if you never tell anybody, that's fine. But I think it was after I had my daughter, this burning desire to thank her for what she had given me. And her story's another story, maybe for another podcast.
Yeah.
But
no, well, that's a big, I think, we have a ministry here called Embrace Grace that we didn't start. We're just ambassadors of it. But it reminds me so much. All of them have stories. And some of our leaders now, it's amazing. We've got one of our leaders, which reminds me a little bit of what you have been through and your birth mother, because she got pregnant early on, felt like she needed to obviously she chose life, but her love choice was giving her baby up for adoption. And her daughter is 21 now, and she's one of our leaders. And I love hearing their stories because there is just so much behind the decisions that people make that we don't know. Because just like you were saying, you had your own child, and thinking of having and feeling like that the right thing to do was to give your baby up, that your mother had her own biological mother had her own story of why she felt like she needed to do that. You can share. We have time. So you can, whatever, as much as you want to share. But I think that's a pivotal piece because life was the answer, but there were things and situations in her life or reasons why she made the choice she
Right.
made to give you up for adoption.
And I think probably back then in the 60s, I'm telling my age, more women, the families didn't help raise that child. They were given up for adoption or whatever they chose to do. But, she shared the story once I met her. And I remember the first time we sat at the table and she just grabbed my hands. We met in Raleigh. And she said, "Can I just look at you? Can I hold your hand?" I mean, she held my hands and rubbed my fingers. And I just thought, wow, like I'll never know that kind of love. Because honestly, the thoughts of losing a child or giving up a child is unfathomable to me. Like I just cannot imagine that. So anyway, her parents obviously told her she needed to come, and she was sent here to Greenville to hang out with friends and have me. She didn't go to school here, and then she could return home. So she did not have support from family, and but that's how my parents got me. It was through a private adoption, not an adoption home, but my mom knew somebody that knew somebody, and that's how we ended up. So, all the pieces of the puzzle, they
Just
line
fit
up
together.
Yeah.
Just fit perfectly.
But that's just been such a blessing. And I don't want to tell her story. I would rather her share that sometime, but I didn't find out till a year later, I will share this much, that she was placed for an adoption.
Wow.
And her story is quite different than mine. And it's not a good story that mine was. And she didn't share that with me for a year. And again, I just realized, Lord, you do love. You love me. Like, you really love me. And I think just really chasing him, even through the divorce and through losing my mom and losing, basically, I didn't lose my kids, but one had just graduated college, so she was moving to another town, and I still had one that was young. Like, these past 10 years have been a true challenge for my faith, but I will stand here today, sit here today, and say I am grateful for every single low, as low as they were when I was in the corner crying. Like, I'm not ashamed to tell people that. I would have been ashamed years ago, but that is part of my story. It's hard.
Yeah.
I remember begging the Lord, please don't leave me. Like, don't leave me like this. Like, I know this is not what you have for me, but the lies begin to resurface, the loneliness sets in.
Yeah.
Life is just different. I've had kids, I've had a marriage, I've had a great career. What's left? Yeah. Do I even care? Like, I'm just being honest with you. Those thoughts flood your mind. And I know I'm not the only one.
Exactly.
But I remember coming to Open Door, and I had been doing a little Bible study on my own at home and really trying to stay in the Word, but there's this war between this ear and this ear that is real. And I don't think I've ever really experienced spiritual warfare and just a darkness like I felt like I've had. So I would, get in the Word, and I knew that's where truth was. And I really felt like the Lord was telling me to come to Open Door, because I had left a different church for no other reason than just the Lord saying. And I was like, no, I'm not going to go to Open Door. So I called my friend who comes here, and I said, hey, are you going tomorrow? Because if you're going, I'm going. She's like, no. I was like, shoo, I don't have to go. But I woke up Sunday morning. So I woke up Sunday morning again, and it was like this really burning, like just compelling me, you're going. So I went by myself and came, and I don't even remember the message, but I remember Pastor Aaron preaching that Sunday, and it was like a continuation of what I had been studying. And I just knew, like, I never left. I've been here ever since, and I love I love the passion here. I love the music here. It certainly wasn't what I grew up in a Baptist church in, but I did all the Bethmore,
Yeah.
not concerts. What are we talking about?
Conferences. Yeah.
To where, Mandisa would sing or
Yeah.
whoever. And I love gospel music and I love praise and worship. But it was just hard for me in a church setting. But that didn't take long, And I think when your heart's in the right place, you learn that that's truly worship. It's not a show. It's not anything but just truly worshiping the one who loves us more than we can imagine.
One thing I saw you do that just I respected so much, and I've heard women who are living alone, or maybe they're widows, or maybe they have been through divorce. Sometimes the shame is so isolating, like I've been through this, or I'm the only one. And so I know, like, I would see you come by yourself, and I would be like, it just takes courage to do that, to go sit by yourself, to be alone and go through that season. I mean, and I think a lot about widows that come in or they're just in a place of really needing healing, but feeling so like, I don't want to be a burden to anybody too. So you just have all these like flood of thoughts going through your mind. And so you were in warfare, which I appreciate you saying that, because it's nothing that the enemy just wants to isolate us and keep us isolated so that we won't, one, ask for help, two, call out to him too. I mean, he wants to keep us separated. And, so I love that. One of the other things, I remember us having a conversation about going through therapy and counseling, and that was one of the other ways we connected, because you had seen a counselor that I had seen. And so that was fun to know that. And I remember you saying, well, I've been, and that was part of the journey that you were on before your separation, is trying to make those concerted efforts of your marriage surviving.
Right.
But not just surviving, but thriving. And how disappointing that was, because no one gets married to sign up for a divorce.
Right.
And so I have friends that are divorced, and I don't know what that feels like, but I also know that I don't see bitterness in you. I don't see anger. And I've been through stuff and I've been angry. And so I know that that's the Holy Spirit, in you, working through you and just drawing you to him. So is there anything that you would want to say to those that have walked through those seasons? Because you've shared a lot, but I know there's been a lot of dark times that if they're in that place now, because I believe there's a lot of people that are in that are in that place.
Yeah, you feel like you're the only one, but you're not. I would just say, cling to the word. Like, no matter where you are in your walk, even I think Pastor Aaron just said recently, I mean, for me, even in the journey of the new business and the waiting in that, just the Lord's presence and really just seeking him through that, for me, has been even more of, I don't want to move unless he moves. And he is going to move. It's just a matter of trusting that he's going to do that. And he is going to get you through your dark times. He hasn't left you even when you feel alone and you're going to church alone and you're home on Friday night alone. You're not alone. And instead of turning on Netflix every time, like, get your Bible out. Really get in the Word. And I remember asking you one time, I was like, I don't know, he just really had created a desire in me to learn more or know him more. Yeah. And there's no way to know him other than walking through what you're walking through. Like, you can allow that to really know him more. Not necessarily he's going to make it go away tomorrow because you pray about it. But I can assure you, looking back over these 10 years, as I said in the beginning, like, I'm so grateful for it. I wasn't grateful a lot of times, and I questioned it a lot of times, but just stay firm in the faith. Don't lose your faith, as That's easy to say because it takes work, it takes effort, it takes, just diving in and leaning into Him.
Yeah.
And trusting.
And you've stayed connected with, friends and in the faith, and you're leading a small group now.
Never thought that would happen.
I was so proud. I've been wanting her to do it. And so, but that's another thing about timing of the Lord too, is I absolutely know I've been reading a little bit about love and limits. And sometimes, God created us to love, but He also created us. We're limited. There is a capacity in us, and we can't do all things. But a lot of the roles we play growing up is, we kind of drive into these roles, but it was nothing that Jesus told us to do, And so over a period of time, your foundation that you had growing up is like the word's never void. So
Right.
I can remember being a little child, even though I would probably say I went to church, but it was seasonal. And so I can't say that I had the foundation you had. But I also see the benefits even now of those seeds, whether it was someone that you met in your 20s that just shared the word with you or prayed with you, and knowing that gave you hope. And I think something that I appreciate about Open Door is that, every idea we come up with, Pastor Aaron and Lauren will go, yeah, we can do this. But I do believe that there is just power in our testimonies, and it's biblical, and so, Lauren, I feel like she is introverted and I'm extroverted, and her brain's going off like it's firing in all directions.
I'm trying to get myself together.
It's firing in all directions now. So I'm gonna let her ask a question or something. But I do appreciate the fact that there's a place that we can share our stories, because so many people want to, and I believe there's power in it. So thank you for just laying it out there today and being so vulnerable and real, because that's what we need.
Yeah. And I'll tell you that my kids through this. So for anybody who's worried about, the walk, I'm really worried about how I looked to them, and really what was I showing them? There were a lot of times I really didn't think about that, but I have two wonderful children that I love with all my heart, as we do, but they truly are a gift from the Lord. And, my daughter, she has said over and over, she said, Mom, your gift is just loving people. You love people. But to read cards that they've given me or text messages that they've sent now over these past 10 years and things that they witnessed and saw that I don't remember, or really worried that I wasn't being the godly mom that I should be. Did they see doubt? Did they see they're watching? Your kids are watching. There's other people watching. And we are made perfect because we're made in His image, but we're not perfect. So we are going to make choices that aren't good, and we're going to fail. But I think in them seeing the fails and failures that I made and the choices that I made, they've also seen the other side, which is that I kept my faith. And I struggled with that. But to hear them verbalize that is just a reminder to stay strong and stay true.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Well, I kind of want to piggyback off of what both of y'all just talked about. I think being from Greenville, and people who are from Greenville will 100% understand what I'm getting ready to say, but it can be, Greenville's grown a lot over the last, probably 25 years or more. I'll be 43 in November. So I've definitely over the last 25 years just grown substantially. But being from Greenville and knowing people from Greenville, can be like a fishbowl.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter sometimes how big it grows or what happens economically, it can still, like, you being from Greenville, you know who's from Greenville and who's not from Greenville. And sometimes that's good and bad. And I know for myself, when my parents went through a divorce, being from Greenville, everybody knowing who they are, having that challenge, it made me, I withdrew tremendously. And so, I mean, I remember the thoughts of like, well, I don't want to go to this grocery store because I don't want to run into this person and them ask me about it, and feeling very not wanting to talk about it. And then it flipping, because it was a pivotal moment, even for me, not going through the divorce myself, but being the child of somebody who did. And being from Greenville, it flipping and being like, no, it is powerful to share your testimony, and people aren't perfect, and God can use anything. But I was just curious, did you experience any of that, where being from Greenville, people knowing who you are, did you withdraw, or were you more of, you know, I want people to see the goodness of God in it, even though I don't feel like it's good right now? Do you remember thinking any of that at all?
I don't think I really thought of that. I don't know how to say this, but it was almost like a relief to get, when the marriage finally just ended, like there was a lot of weight from that. But I think dealing with my mom, who was really in her last days, I was so focused on just trying to breathe today and care for her, and like, I really didn't think about what other people thought of me.
Yeah.
Probably should have, but I didn't. But I was just so engrossed in my what was going on just from day to day. I will say that I was very surprised that there were friends that never reached out to me. And I don't know why. So I think that contributed to more aloneness, or more, you know, it just full circle. But I think I was just trying to make it. Like, what's next? Like, I'd never been alone and trying to figure out how to live. So I don't know. I think more for my children. I don't think I realized they went through that. So that's interesting to hear you say that as well, that I worried about them. They kept saying, we're fine, Mom, we're fine, Mom. No, they weren't fine.
Yeah. Well, it, you know, in everybody's situation like that looks so dramatically different, and there's so many facets to everybody's story and all of that. But I just think it's really awesome when people share what they've been through in full transparency. And I just appreciate you so much coming on, and being from Greenville, I know sometimes that can be a little bit of added pressure.
Actually, this is pressure. This microphone is pressure.
I know, it's so big.
So it's just been a blessing, and I can't wait to see what God does through even this, and using this small platform for other people to hear your story and testimony. And I'm just amazed just listening to it myself. So
I have a question though before we close. Have you had an opportunity to share with your biological mother that you were going to be sharing your testimony?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But we're meeting next week, and I will definitely share with her. I'm sure she'll listen. Yeah. She's very wise. She loves Jesus, which I love. I can remember praying for that wherever she was, you know, that she knew Jesus. My biological dad has passed, so I have not connected on that side of the family. But I don't know. I could see her wanting to share, maybe.
Yeah. Well, it was fun. She did, Paige, when we had coffee, she shared with me a picture. Because I just wanted to see her. Like, after you said the story, so I saw the picture, but then I was like, oh my goodness. And then she showed me a picture of her biological father. And I was like, wow. And your child, your son, her son looks so much like it was your father, right?
Wow.
It was almost scary. Yeah. I mean, I was like, wow. And just to see, like, there's just pieces that were fitting to visually see your story. I don't know that, you know, I'm so visual, so to be able to hear it and then see that, it's just sweet to me because you were always saying those questions like, do I have her eyes or do I have these? And it was like God answered all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, I know we've got to go, but that was just another, like all my life, just hear, oh, you and your sister don't favor. I was like, I know she's got all the skills. She's got the athletic abilities and I have the coloring abilities. Like I love to color and that's about it. Like she just had it all. But, just the reminders, I think that the enemy used, you're not alike. You're not a part of them. You don't belong. But it's just another God thing because my pictures in my office every day, somebody will look at my daughter's picture and they'll say, y'all look like sisters. It's like every day he just reminded, like even the smallest detail
Yes.
of something that was a concern or something that was meant to pull me away or make me feel bad. Like even the smallest details, he's in every single detail. And so for every day I hear that people are like, I'm like, it's not that I want her to look like me, but it's like for all the years I heard you don't look like your family or you don't look like your mom. It's like, I get that every day. Yeah. It's just like, oh, I love that.
So
and they are stunning, by the way. If you're listening, you're not watching. Paige and her daughter are both stunning.
Oh, they are
you.
gorgeous, gorgeous women.
Inside and out.
That's the most important. And that's the legacy that, I feel has been left for me and the family that I was given that I want my kids to have. It's not the inheritance that you leave them at all, but it's really the impact of pointing them to Jesus and knowing that they're walking with the Lord. And I want them to have that passion. Yes. I want them to see that and grow.
Absolutely.
I think they have.
Yes. Thank you so much. Well, if you guys are listening today, know that we have an email that you can ask questions, or maybe you can relate to something that Paige shared today and you just want to share a little of your story, or maybe God's answered a prayer for you even in listening and encouraged you. So renew@opendoorchurch.com is how you can get in touch with Lauren or myself, and we'll be happy to forward any of your questions that you may have about Paige's story. Thank you for listening. I hope you were encouraged today. And we cannot wait to get with you next time. We've got some more exciting episodes coming up. God bless.